Mom said, "Your kid's birthday will make your sister's kids feel left out. Just skip it." I smiled, told my girl we'd celebrate somewhere better, and drove away. A year later, my sister's kids were jealous of the photos my daughter's 10th party. That jealousy became the fire that finally burned the family tree. Mom ruined everything back then. And I think that was the moment something finally cracked in me. Something quiet but permanent. It wasn't just about my daughter's birthday. It was about all the little things that had piled up for years, stacked on top of each other like dirty dishes no one wanted to clean. But that birthday, or what should have been one, was the last plate on the pile. My daughter had just turned 9. Not a baby anymore, but still young enough to get excited about balloons and cupcakes and paper crowns. I'd asked my mom if we could do something small for her just at home. Nothing fancy. She looked at me and said, "Your kid's birthday will make your sister's boys feel left out. Just skip it. Be mature about it." That was it. No hesitation, no shame. Like she genuinely believed it made sense. Like my child was supposed to sit there and clap while her cousins got all the attention again. We'd been living at my parents' house for almost 2 years by then. After my ex-husband left and started a new family across state lines, I had nowhere else to go. Mom said we could stay, but what she really meant was, "You can stay but don't expect kindness. Not for you. Not for your daughter. They help with childcare, sure." But they also watched her like hawks, making comments about her body, her clothes, her face, her laugh. My dad once said she needed to cut carbs before she gets mistaken for a fridge. My mom laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. My daughter heard it from the stairs. She didn't say anything, but the next day she asked for a smaller plate at dinner. I should have left sooner. I know that now. But when you're trying to work, stay afloat, and raise a kid alone, you cling to whatever feels stable, even if it's poisoned. The only person who acted like my daughter mattered was my sister. He came by that day, the one Mom ruined, and slipped an envelope into my hand. It had $300 in it. No card, just the money. She kissed my girl on the forehead and left without staying. I think she felt ashamed, like she knew what was happening but didn't know how to stop it. That night, my daughter asked why Nana didn't give her a birthday gift. I told her maybe they forgot. But she didn't ask again. She just lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, humming to herself like she was pretending it didn't hurt. I went downstairs to do laundry and found my parents laughing with my sister's kids about the video game consoles they got last week. New expensive ones. There were still pieces of wrapping paper on the floor. One of them had a card that said, "To my favorite boys." I recognized Mom's handwriting. I didn't say anything. Just walked back up, packed a few things, and sat beside my daughter until morning. When she woke up, I told her we were going on an adventure. Somewhere better. We left without saying goodbye. Moved to Columbus, got a tiny place on the edge of town. I kept working the same job remotely for a while, then got a better one that paid more and didn't make me feel like I was always catching up. My daughter started laughing again. Really laughing. I signed her up for gymnastics. We put stickers on the fridge when she finished a book. I taught her how to make pancakes, and I started planning. Because when her 10th birthday came around, I wasn't just going to make it special for her. I was going to make sure everyone who treated her like she was invisible would see exactly what they'd thrown away. Her 10th birthday landed on a Saturday, and by the time it arrived, I'd been planning it for nearly a year. I chose the date back when we first moved to Columbus, when everything still felt uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. Her 10th birthday was going to be different. Undeniable. The kind of day that no one could ignore and no one would ruin. Especially not the people who acted like she didn't exist. I rented out a lakeside venue just outside the city. Small, beautiful, peaceful, with string lights over a wraparound deck, plenty of space for games, and a bounce house shaped like a castle. Inside there were tables for crafts, a cupcake bar, music, and a woman dressed as the cartoon heroine my daughter still adored, even if she pretended she didn't anymore. I spent more than I probably should have. I didn't care. She was turning 10, and for once I wanted her to feel like the center of everything. I wanted her to feel seen. I invited neighbors, her classmates, a couple of families from gymnastics, and my sister. That was it. No mom. No dad. I didn't even consider it. Not after last year. Not after they acted like her 9th birthday was an inconvenience. Not after they told me to cancel it so her cousins wouldn't feel left out. My sister texted the week before and said she was bringing her kids. I paused before answering. Her boys were decent when she was watching them, but behind her back they repeated everything they heard from their grandparents. Stuff that made my daughter cry when she thought I wasn't listening. I hated the idea of them being there. But I told myself maybe it would be different this time. Maybe they'd see how happy she was and feel something, shame maybe, or jealousy. Anything was better than indifference. The party started perfectly. She wore a pale blue dress with silver stars across the sleeves, and when she twirled, it lit up under the sun. Her friends were everywhere, dragging her from one station to another. She kept losing her shoes and her face hurt from smiling. I hadn't seen her like that in a long time. Not since before we left. For the first hour it felt like nothing could go wrong. Then her cousins arrived. They didn't greet her. Didn't say happy birthday. They went straight for the snack table, loaded their plates and started throwing bits of food at each other like it was a backyard cookout. Within minutes one of them pulled down a streamer and popped a balloon. Another knocked over a centerpiece we'd made together the night before. A paper flower bouquet she'd stayed up late working on because she was proud of how it turned out. She saw it fall and crack. She didn't say anything. She just turned around and walked down to the edge of the lake, where she stood by herself staring out at the water. And then right behind me I heard it. Why does she even get a party? Nana says she's not a real part of our family anyway. There was a silence after that. The kind where every adult freezes and a few kids suddenly look confused like they just realized the rules changed and no one told them. I turned, ready to tear into whoever said it, but my sister was already there. Her face had gone white. She grabbed both boys by the arms, said a quick apology to me and left. Didn't even wait for cake. The mood shifted after that. It was like the laughter had been sucked out of the air. Some parents tried to keep things going, but the kids weren't dumb. They could tell something was wrong. My daughter came back from the lake and smiled for pictures, but her eyes looked tired. She didn't complain, didn't cry, she just dimmed. Later that night we sat on the couch going through the photos. She picked out her favorites, the ones before her cousins arrived, and asked if we could send them to Grandma. I said sure. And I did. I sent a full folder. All the smiles. All the fun. One in particular, the one where she's surrounded by kids laughing mid-song with frosting on her chin and a sparkler candle in her hand. Her cousins weren't in that shot. Neither were my parents. Just her, glowing in a room full of people who actually wanted to be there. I didn't include a message. Just sent the photos. They saw them. I know because 2 days later my uncle, my dad's older brother, called me. First time in over a year. He said he saw the pictures. He said he'd heard what happened. Then he said, I'm coming to get you. It's time your parents get reminded who they used to be, and what they've become. My uncle pulled up in a dark blue truck just after noon on a Thursday. I hadn't seen him in nearly 3 years. Not since a wedding where my parents spent most of the night whispering to each other about how embarrassing I looked in a thrifted dress. He was always the outlier in the family. Less judgmental, more observant, the kind of man who remembered birthdays without Facebook reminders. Growing up, he used to sneak me extra gifts when Mom decided my sister deserved more. He stepped out of the truck with a folder in one hand and a small bag of cookies in the other. Said he brought them for my daughter. Chocolate chip. Homemade. We didn't waste time. I told my daughter I'd be back soon, and he and I drove toward the house I hadn't stepped foot in since the night we left. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe cold indifference. Maybe fake smiles. What I didn't expect was to walk into the living room and see the picture I'd sent them, the one from the party, printed out and sitting on the coffee table. My mother was in the kitchen making coffee like this was a normal visit. My father sat in his recliner watching TV with the volume too loud, not even looking at me. I could tell from the stiffness in his neck that he knew I was there. Uncle David didn't sit down. He stayed standing. He looked straight at my parents and said, "You've gone too far." They both turned, slow and silent. Mom opened her mouth to speak, but he cut her off. I saw the photos. I heard what the boys said. I talked to your neighbors. I talked to your daughter. What the hell happened to you two? Mom tried to downplay it. Said I was dramatic. Said the party wasn't really a big deal. Dad mumbled something about me, always wanting attention. That's when Uncle David opened the folder. It had old family photos. Pictures of me as a kid smiling next to handmade birthday cakes. My sister and I in matching outfits. Even a note my dad had written to me in middle school after I got sick, calling me his brave little trooper. He held them up one by one. You remember this girl? He asked. You used to love her like she mattered. Now you act like she's trash. Like she's lucky to be tolerated. My mother said I made my own choices. That I picked a bad man to marry, that I made mistakes, and was now playing the victim. Uncle David didn't yell. He just looked around the room, then down at the couch where I used to cry myself to sleep some nights, and shook his head. He said, I gave you that car outside so you wouldn't be stuck in the house all the time. You want to treat your own child like garbage? Then walk. Maybe the fresh air will knock some decency back into your heads. Then he took the keys off the hook near the door, dropped them in his pocket and turned to leave. I didn't say anything the whole time. I didn't need to. They watched me as I followed him out, not with guilt or regret, just a kind of stunned silence. like they'd been caught off guard by someone who wasn't supposed to care. We got back to my place around 4. My daughter was at the kitchen table drawing something in crayon. When she looked up and saw me, she smiled and ran over. She asked if we were going to see Grandma and Grandpa again soon. I knelt down and said maybe. But not until they remember how to be kind. A week later, my dad had a stroke. He collapsed in the backyard while watering the garden and was rushed to the hospital. My sister called me sobbing. He was in a coma by morning. And somehow after everything, I still found myself walking into that hospital room, standing next to my mother who looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, staring at the man who once joked that my daughter should skip dessert until she fit in her jeans. I didn't forgive them that day. I didn't even speak. But something shifted. Because even though he couldn't hear me, I sat there anyway, just to make sure someone was still on his side. Hospitals are loud in the quietest ways. Beeping monitors, shuffling feet, the low hum of fluorescent lights. But somehow it all blends into a kind of background silence that forces you to hear your own thoughts. I sat there for hours watching my father breathe through machines, not knowing whether he was floating somewhere inside himself or already too far gone to come back. The doctors said he'd had a stroke. Severe enough to knock him unconscious, but not so bad that he was beyond hope. Still, he hadn't spoken. He hadn't moved. Just the rise and fall of his chest and the slow drip of fluids into his arm. My mother sat across from me, not speaking either. Just holding her purse like it was an anchor, staring at his hospital bracelet like it might spell out an answer. I brought my daughter on the second day. She wore a blue hoodie and held my hand a little too tight. She didn't say anything until we were standing by his bed. Then she whispered, "Does he still remember me?" I told her he did. I had no idea if that was true. She drew a card that night and gave it to me before school the next morning. It had stick figures of her and Grandpa holding hands, with the words "I still love you even if you were mean" sometimes written in purple marker. I slipped it under his pillow when no one was watching. Days passed like that. Quiet routine. I came before work, after work, before dinner, after bedtime. My sister started showing up more often too. She brought books, snacks, updates from the cousins. She didn't mention the party. Neither did I. My mother stayed overnight sometimes, sleeping in the stiff recliner. She never once asked me to help. She also never told me to leave. It was like we were both clinging to the same lifeboat, just on opposite ends. On the 5th night I came in late, almost midnight. My daughter had trouble falling asleep, and I'd waited until I was sure she wouldn't wake up looking for me. The hospital halls were half lit, the air freezing like someone had forgotten to adjust the thermostat. When I walked into the room, someone else was already there. She was sitting by the bed, her hand in his. Polished nails, soft perfume, well-dressed like she didn't belong in this place. She was talking to him in a low voice, not loud enough to understand but clearly not praying. I said, "Excuse me?" She turned around, startled, and stood up fast. "I'm sorry. I'm a friend of his. From a long time ago. I just came to see if he was okay." I stared at her. "He hasn't worked in 10 years. She froze, then nodded once. "I shouldn't have come," she said, and left before I could ask anything else. The next morning, I didn't say anything to my mother right away. I waited until my daughter was at school, until we were alone in the hospital cafeteria, both of us stirring the same cups of burnt coffee. Then I asked her who the woman was. She didn't act surprised. Just stared into her cup for a long time before saying, "You weren't supposed to see her." She told me everything. The woman had been around for years. Not a full-blown affair, not something you'd see in a drama, but something real enough to hurt. They met back when he was still working part-time consulting. Coffee turned into lunches. Lunches turned into clearing his head. My mother knew. She never confronted him. Said she didn't want to lose the rest of what little they still had. I asked her why she stayed. She looked at me and said, "Because I was afraid of ending up alone like you." I didn't answer. I just stood up and walked back to his room. That night he moved. Not just blinking. A real movement. A slight turn of the head. Then the next day he opened his eyes fully and looked straight at me. His mouth twitched. His lips moved. It took effort, but he got the words out. He said my name. Just once. Then he started to cry. I didn't cry back. I just sat there and let him see me. Really see me. He said, "I'm sorry. For the way we treated you. For the way I made her treat you. For forgetting you were mine too." I didn't forgive him. Not yet. But something loosened. That night when I got home, I found my daughter asleep on the couch with her tablet still playing videos. I covered her with a blanket, sat beside her and watched her breathe. And I thought maybe this is where it starts. Not a happy ending, but something real. He came home on a gray Tuesday in March. The nurse wheeled him in while my mother held the door open, her eyes red from crying or exhaustion or both. He looked thinner, older and slower, but he was awake. Present. And when he saw my daughter, he smiled like he hadn't earned the right to, and pulled her into a shaky hug that lasted longer than expected. She didn't flinch. She hugged him back and didn't let go until he did. We didn't talk much that day. No deep conversation, no grand apology. But it didn't feel fake. Something had shifted. He wasn't the same man who'd laughed when people mocked my daughter's weight. He was softer now. Fragile even. The kind of fragile that only comes when your own mortality taps you on the shoulder and reminds you that your time is running out. Then the gifts started showing up. The first was a package on our doorstep. Plain brown paper, no return label. Inside was a pair of sneakers my daughter had pointed out 6 months earlier in a store window. Purple with little wings on the sides. Not expensive but thoughtful. Someone had remembered. No card, no note. Just the shoes. A few days later, an envelope. $500 in cash. Tucked between 2 blank sheets of paper. I stood there staring at it, unsure what message I was supposed to take from the silence. It didn't feel like bribery. It felt like regret. Then came the pie. Homemade cinnamon apple wrapped in foil and still warm. A sticky note on top read, "Still learning." My daughter was the one who found it. She took one bite and said it tasted like something familiar, like the version of my mother she always hoped existed. We stopped by their house a week later just for a short visit. I hadn't planned to go in, but my mother opened the door before we could even knock. She looked like she'd been pacing. Without saying anything, she held out a small box and handed it to my daughter. Inside was a necklace. Tiny gold chain with a star-shaped pendant. I recognized it instantly. It had been mine once, back when I was about her age. I'd worn it to school every day for months until one day it disappeared. I always thought I'd lost it. Now I wasn't so sure. Later that night, while my daughter was brushing her teeth, I asked my mom why she gave it back. She said, "I saved it for something. I just didn't know what." There was something strange about hearing her admit to keeping a part of me all those years, even if she never said why. Even if she didn't realize how much it hurt when I thought it was gone. More things started to change. Small things but real. She stopped commenting on my daughter's clothes. Stopped talking over me at family dinners. Stopped pretending like every choice I'd made was a mistake she needed to fix. And then one afternoon my sister called. He sounded surprised. "Mom paid the deposit for the kids' summer camp," she said. Without me even asking. Said she was trying to do better. Said she's sorry for how she raised us, for how she raised you. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just listened. Later that week we had dinner. All of us. My daughter, me, my sister, her boys, our parents. It was awkward at first. The boys were unusually quiet. My daughter didn't make eye contact with anyone but me. But the food was good, and for once no one snapped or rolled their eyes or made backhanded comments. Halfway through the meal, my father tapped the side of his glass with a fork. He looked at me, then turned to my daughter. His voice was still slurred, but he spoke slowly like he meant every word. "We didn't give you what you deserved," he said. "We missed too much. Said too little. We thought we were being honest, but we were being cruel." He reached for her hand across the table and she didn't pull away. He added, "If you'll let us, we want to be better. Starting now." No one moved for a second. No one spoke. Then my daughter nodded once. Not because she forgave him, but because she was brave enough to let them try. And for the first time in years, I watched my mother wipe tears from her face without trying to hide them. It didn't all change overnight. That's not how people work. But it started. And that was more than I ever thought I'd get. They didn't ask to move in or take over. They didn't demand credit for every kind gesture. They just showed up, differently. Every Wednesday my mom picked up my daughter from gymnastics and took her out for smoothies. No lectures about her weight. No comments about her clothes. Just 2 hours where she listened. She even asked questions, not to correct her but to know her. One night my daughter came home with tears in her eyes and a stuffed elephant in her hands. She said Grandma bought it for her after she talked about how scared she still was of sleeping alone sometimes. The last time she'd mentioned that fear, back when we lived in their house, my mother had laughed and said she'd better toughen up. Now she was buying elephants. My father couldn't drive anymore, but every Friday he video called her. Sometimes they talked about school. Sometimes he just listened while she read from whatever book she was into that week. He sent her handwritten postcards in the mail. Little jokes, doodles, reminders that she mattered. I was careful not to let my guard down too fast. I'd lived too long in the shadow of their moods to believe everything was different now. But week after week, month after month, they kept proving me wrong. They helped financially too, quietly. No boasting. No guilt. When my laptop broke, one showed up in the mail. When I mentioned needing new tires, my mom texted a prepaid appointment to a local shop. Every time I tried to argue, she said the same thing. "We missed so many years. Let us make the next ones easier." My sister was the one who changed in the most surprising way. Maybe it was seeing her own kids mimic the cruel things our parents used to say. Maybe it was watching my daughter survive it and still smile. But something clicked in her. She started defending us. Loudly. She told her boys that family isn't about being favored. It's about showing up, every time no matter what. They listened. Slowly, awkwardly, but they did. And when they came to my daughter's piano recital that fall, they gave her a standing ovation like she was a celebrity. She laughed so hard she snorted and nearly fell off the bench. After the show, they handed her a card with $5 each tucked inside. One of them said, "You're cooler than any of our friends." It wasn't perfect. There were still days when the old silence crept back in, where I caught my mom staring like she didn't quite know how to fit into this new version of us. But then my daughter would run to her and wrap her arms around her waist, and I'd see my mother hug her back without flinching. One night, my daughter asked if we could go back to the house for Thanksgiving that year. She said, "I think it would be okay now." I hesitated, but I said yes. Thanksgiving came and the house smelled like cinnamon and roasted turkey and something new. Maybe hope, maybe just peace. My father sat at the head of the table, his voice still weak but steady. My mother passed the rolls without a single correction about portion size. My sister made the boys thank everyone individually. And when it came time to say what we were thankful for, my daughter stood up and looked at every person at the table. She said, "I'm thankful my family found their way back to me." No one spoke for a long time after that. Because what do you say when the person you failed is willing to forgive you anyway? What do you say when the kid you ignored is the one who saved all of you? Maybe there are no perfect words for that. Just the quiet understanding that this time they'll do better. And that somehow, we all will. The real update. It's been a little over 4 months since Thanksgiving and somehow we're still holding steady. No backsliding, no old habits slipping in. Just a quiet kind of consistency I never thought possible with them. My daughter spends weekends at their house now. She and my mom paint little wooden birdhouses and bake things from scratch. My dad sits nearby, writing stories for her in a notebook. Short little tales with made-up creatures and funny endings. She reads them like they're sacred text. The cousins have warmed up too. At her science fair last month, they showed up early, helped her set up, and even bragged about her volcano project to anyone who walked by. It wasn't performative. It was real. My sister and I talk more. We don't walk on eggshells anymore. We're just sisters again. And my daughter? She's lighter. Brighter. She said the other day, "I like how everything feels now." So do I.